All right, today we're going to talk about your body's most incredible engines, your muscles. I mean, think about it. From the massive force it takes to lift something heavy to the super delicate blink of an eye. These things are behind literally every move you make. But how? How do they actually work? And that brings us to this really cool question. How in the world can your muscles do both of these things? How can the exact same biological system lift a giant boulder, but also gently hold a feather without, completely crushing it? It's a fascinating puzzle, and today, we are going to solve it. So the very first clue to figuring this out is to realize that muscle isn't just one single thing. Nope. It's actually a team of 3 super specialized engines, and each one has a totally different and totally vital job inside your body. And here's the team. You've got skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Honestly, each one is a little marvel of biological engineering. They're working together all the time just to keep you going. So let's get to know them. Okay, time for a proper introduction. Let's really meet each member of this muscle team and figure out what makes them tick. First up, we've got skeletal muscle. You can think of these as the movers. Yeah, these are the ones you probably picture when someone says muscles, right? The ones attached to your bones. And the key thing here is they're under your voluntary control. You decide when to walk, when to lift, when to wave hello. You're the boss. Next, meet the pacer. That's cardiac muscle. This stuff is incredible. You'll only find it in one place in your entire body, your heart. And it works completely involuntarily. You don't have to think about it. Thank goodness. It just keeps on pumping day and night for your entire life. It is a truly unstoppable engine. And rounding out the team, we have the regulators. Smooth muscle. These guys are the silent, behind-the-scenes crew. You'll find them lining the walls of your internal organs, your stomach, your blood vessels, and they're handling all the important stuff like digestion and blood pressure without you ever giving it a single thought. They just take care of business. So this table kind of puts it all together nicely. You can see skeletal muscle is voluntary, you control it, but cardiac and smooth, totally involuntary. They do their own thing. But here's something interesting. Check out their appearance. Under a microscope, both skeletal and cardiac muscle are striated. They have this striped pattern. But smooth muscle? Well, true to its name, it's smooth. Okay, so for the next part, we're going to zero in on skeletal muscles specifically. We're going to take a journey deep inside. I mean, we're talking from the muscle you can actually see and touch, all the way down to its tiniest microscopic parts to really find out how it all works. The best way to picture the structure of a muscle is to think of a big, thick rope. That whole rope is the muscle. But that rope is made of smaller bundles of ropes. We call those fascicles. And then each of those is made up of even tinier threads. And those threads are the individual muscle fibers, the actual muscle cells. It's ropes all the way down. But wait, we can go even deeper. Inside every single one of those little fibers are millions and millions of perfectly organized repeating units. These are the true engines of your muscle. They're called sarcomeres, and this is where the magic, the actual contraction, really happens. And inside each one of those sarcomeres, we finally meet our key players. We've got these thick filaments called myosin, and these thin ones called actin. Just remember those 2 names, actin and myosin. These are the 2 proteins that are going to do all the heavy lifting. All right, so we've met the players, we've seen the stage, now for the main event. How do they actually work together to make a muscle contract? The answer is this beautiful, really elegant idea called the sliding filament theory. And here is the big idea, the main takeaway. When a muscle contracts, the little actin and myosin filaments, they don't actually get shorter. They don't shrink. Instead, they slide past one another. They actively pull the ends of the sarcomere closer together, kind of like closing a telescope. It's an incredibly clever design. So let's look at myosin first. Before anything even happens, it uses a bit of energy from a molecule you might have heard of called ATP. It uses that energy to get into what we call a high-energy state. A great way to think of it is like pulling back the string on a bow and arrow. It's just loaded with potential energy, cocked and ready to go. Then, boom, when the signal arrives, that myosin head latches onto the actin filament and just unleashes all that stored energy. We call this the power stroke. It snaps forward and it pulls the actin filament along with it. Now, this is a tiny, tiny pull, but when you multiply it by millions and millions of sarcomeres all doing it at once, That's where you get real, tangible muscle force. Okay, let's put the whole sequence together step by step. First, a signal arrives from a nerve. That signal triggers a release of calcium. Now, calcium is the key. It unlocks the binding sites on the actin. This allows the myosin heads to finally grab on and, bam, perform that power stroke. And then finally, a new little energy molecule, another ATP, comes in, breaks the bond, and resets the myosin so it can do it all over again. And get this whole cycle can repeat thousands of times a second. So, we've just seen this incredible microscopic dance. Now let's zoom back out and see how this tiny process has some massive real-world impacts. Everything from cosmetic procedures to deadly poisons, and even what happens to our bodies after we die. Let's take Botox, for example. It actually comes from a really potent neurotoxin. And the way it works is by messing with the very first step we just talked about. It blocks the nerve from releasing its signal, a molecule called acetylcholine. So if there's no signal, there's no calcium release, and there's no power stroke. The muscle is essentially paralyzed for a little while, which is why it smooths out wrinkles that are caused by those little muscle contractions. Now for something a bit more grim, but biologically it's absolutely fascinating. Rigor mortis. You know, the stiffness that happens after death. Well, it turns out it's a direct and perfectly logical consequence of the exact muscle machinery we've just been exploring. So here's what's going on. After death, the membranes in the muscle cells start to break down, and all that calcium that was stored away just leaks out. This flood of calcium triggers a massive final contraction as all the myosin heads bind to actin. But, and this is the crucial part, the body isn't making any more ATP. And remember what ATP does? It's the molecule that breaks the bond between actin and myosin. Without it, they get stuck. They are locked together, and that's what causes the stiffness, until the proteins themselves eventually start to break down. So when you think about it, from the raw power needed to move a boulder to the incredible precision it takes to hold a feather, it all comes down to this perfectly coordinated microscopic dance of proteins, signals, and energy happening millions of times over every second. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Every single move you make depends on this flawless little performance. What happens when the music stops?